Hello everyone, I am Tela and I have played so much Europa Universalis 5 and now 1.3 is about to arrive. So in case you can't decide what to play, these are my top 10 recommendations, with a few honorable mentions. Before starting and to avoid confusions, this top 10 is based on how fun is to play each country of this list. It's not a top 10 strongest countries, it's a top 10 funniest countries depending on many things, but mostly focusing on events, unique gameplay loop and unique access to mechanics. But now, enough with the yapping, so let's start with a country that might not be the funniest, but I play every time an update releases. At number 10 we have Castile. The main reason why I recommend Castile is because of how stable it is. They are very big, very powerful, very rich and very populated. On top of that, you can also check your proximity spread and see how good it is because of the amount of rivers there are in the Iberian Peninsula. So after building a governor in Toledo and another one in Sevilla, you'll be able to have control across pretty much all of Iberia. The exceptions will be Galicia, which you can just release as a subject, and the Basque land, which you can just feed to Navarre after vassalizing them. By just doing this, you'll be always in positive numbers, which means you'll be safe to interact with everything Castile has to offer, like their unique government reforms, or this endless list of events. And if this wasn't enough, you also need to know how versatile Castile is. You can stay on Iberia and play tall, or go for a naval conquest through the Mediterranean, or go for a land conquest through France or through the Maghreb. Or you can still sit on Iberia, but instead of spending money on playing tall, you can spend it on overseas colonization. Wherever you choose, Castile has the population, the economy and the geography to help you do it. But none of this is the main reason why I recommend Castile. As you might know, Tinto usually overhauls the game with every update they do. But no matter the patch, Castile is always the same. And when a country is that stable, you can play it in every patch with every update they do and test all these changes before playing anything else. So that's why the crown of Castile is number 10. At number 9 we have Japan, but not this Japan. I mean this Japan, a Japanese clan. And this is probably the most unique country in this list. When you play as a Japanese clan, you are on a timer. You have 63 years to fight the other clans to conquer as much of Japan as you can. And this is a very active gameplay because you're fighting wars all the time. Yes, it can feel repetitive, but you have so many things to do, and this is something that doesn't happen with most of the other countries. Once the Sengoku starts, however, everything changes. As you conquer locations when you're still a building-based country, you're going to get very rich. So rich, there is no way to spend all that money. But once the Sengoku starts, you're going to lose all your buildings, all your income and all your manpower. And you'll have to survive using your savings until you get to stabilize again. Which is once again very unique. Then once you get to stabilize, you will be one of the strongest countries in the game with huge RGOs everywhere and a very big population. And while Japan doesn't have unique events, it's still a very fun country to play. Mostly because of their geography and the Shinto religion. And even if you don't want to play a united Japan because of its lack of events, forming Japan at least once is something I think you should do. And that's why it's number 9. At number 8 we have Aragon/Naples, because they're equally good for this kind of gameplay, which is playing around your navy. When you play around your navy, everything in your game changes, because you're going to be able to fight much stronger armies by just avoiding them. And your expansion path also changes. As Aragon, for example, you're not going to fight Castile or France in the early game because they're much stronger than you. So you're going to be forced to play tall and expand somewhere else until you have enough money and manpower to fight Castile and France. Which is something super fun to do, especially in the Mediterranean. Because you're going to find yourself taking only strategic locations, like Sardinia, Sicily and Morea because of their RGOs, and Tunis, Naples, Alexandria and Constantinople because of their market centers, which is again going to give you a lot of money to be able to fight your stronger neighbors, like France and Castile as Aragon or Hungary or the HRE when you play as Naples. And when it comes to events and other unique content, both Aragon and Naples have a lot. Aragon might have a little more content, but I definitely recommend giving both countries a go. And that's why they're number 8. At number 7 we have Denmark, which is another naval-based country, so everything I said about this with Aragon and Naples also applies to Denmark, but there's a very big difference. Unlike with Aragon and Naples, when you play as Denmark you cannot ignore your neighbors. because you start very close to bankruptcy, so you have to expand as soon as possible to avoid losing to this. As Denmark, you start with a negative balance, a huge debt, low control everywhere and low legitimacy. So it's safe to say it's a very challenging start. However, the Danish advances are amazing, and you also start allied with the Holy Roman Emperor. So this allows you to get some expansion into the Holy Roman Empire even as an outsider. By doing this, you'll be able to get some of your money back and completely recover by the time you're ready to fight Sweden. And by the time you completely recover, you'll be able to start expanding as a naval-based country would do, conquering key strategic points like Prussia in the Baltic because of their amber, or London and the Netherlands because of their markets and how rich and populated they are. This mix of different gameplays, their advances and their starting position allows Denmark to do a huge comeback that feels so satisfying to do. But it can be very challenging for less experienced players. And that's why it's number 7. At number 6 we have Verona, and while it's true they have no events, they're still going to be one of the funniest nations to play in the new update, and I'll tell you why. Italy has always been one of the funniest regions to play in EU5, and now it's going to get reworked. Playing in a region with this good RGOs, this high population and this super high development is already very fun, especially if there are so many nations because you can interact with many of them. But what makes Italy that fun is the Guelphs and Ghibellines situation and the Italian wars, which are going to get reworked in the new update. That said, the 3 default picks in Italy are usually Naples because of how big and strong they are, Milan because of many reasons I'll explain now because they are relevant to Verona, and Pisa or Florence because they are somewhere in the middle. But yeah, Milan is usually regarded as the funniest one out of these 3, because of their amazing flavor, they have a lot of flavor, and because of how strong they are. And when we say Milan is strong, we say it mainly because of 2 reasons. One of them is how fast they integrate land, because of their special cabinet action. And the second reason is their geography. Turns out being in the Alps and having a river flow through you is very good for defensive battles. The thing is, Verona is also in the Alps and also has a river flowing through them. And as of 1.3 they get this special peace deal option. What this does is basically integrating all of your unintegrated land, so you actually get to integrate much faster than Milan does. And on top of that, it reduces your antagonism to 0. So just because of this peace deal option, no nation in Italy comes close to Verona right now. Yes, you can only use it once per game, but I feel like this is balanced for how strong it is. So that's why Verona is number 6. At number 5 we have Bohemia, the strongest archery nation. They have the best RGOs in all of Europe. A very strong main culture, as Czech is part of Bohemian, German and Slavic at the same time. Many strong events, like the one where you can form a personal union with Poland very early in the game, and the fact that you become the archery emperor very early as well, which isn't only strong but also very fun. Uniting the archery is a very fun and original experience, especially now in the new update, with the new archery faction system, and Bohemia, despite the nerfs, is still the best nation to unite the archery. And that's why it's number 5. At number 4 we have Muscovy, which was even the most unique nation before the Byzantium DLC. Because first of all, it's one of the few nations where diplo vassalization is a thing. But they have much more than that, like the buffs they get from breaking the Tatar yoke or the buffs they get from having their own patriarchate. Then there's also the most game-breaking stuff, the Veche Republic or the Prikazi cabinet actions. If you are a Veche Republic, you can invite any ruler to your country and use it as your own. Which means you can manipulate your ruler traits and always have an architectural visionary. By doing this you'll get so much free development in every single location you own, which is already game-breaking. But the Prikazi cabinet actions are even more game-breaking than that. You can use the Prikazi cabinet actions to ignore diseases, to ignore annexation speed, or to just get so much money from them. In fact, the Prikazi cabinet actions are the main reason why Russia is so strong in Europa Universalis 5. Which is also something very unique to do, because to rush the formation of Russia, which is something you want to do because you want to get the empire rank as soon as possible, you have to conquer so many locations from different cultures and different religions. Which is something that can be very slow, but again, as I said, you want to rush the formation of Russia. So you want to take all that land, not even integrate it, deal with the negative effects it has in your economy, deal with the negative effects it has in your army, because you cannot recruit army from these locations, you will also get so many revolts. So yeah, it's a very interesting gameplay and a very unique one. Starting as Muscovy, getting into that many problems, then forming Russia and slowly catching up and recovering from what you did is an amazing experience. And that's why Muscovy is number 4. Now, before going to the top 3, I have to name some honorable mentions, with the first one being Majapahit. Majapahit is one of the funniest and more stable nations, once you get past the disasters of course. It also has a very big population, they get the Empire rank very early because of an event, and their RGOs are very good as well. On top of that, it's also naval based, which is very fun, and it also means it's very easy to learn the game. The only issue is that you'll have to settle in Indochina if you want to use your 4 local governors. But you can already push enough proximity from your capital once you get enough advances and naval presence, so it isn't that big of a deal. Our next honorable mention is Brandenburg, with the goal of farming Prussia of course. You see, Prussia is always fun to play, not only because of its content but also from a roleplay point of view, and on top of that they have one of the most beautiful colors in the game. Yes, I know the Teutonic Order can also form Prussia, but the Teutonic Order is much stronger and much richer than Brandenburg. However, Brandenburg is much funnier to play because of its weak starting position. Just like Denmark, they start with very low income. But mainly because of their events, Brandenburg has the ability to overcome this and eventually dominate the scene. They also start as an elector, which is something very special the Teutonic Order doesn't have, and this is even more important in 1.3 with the Holy Roman Empire rework. On top of that, Brandenburg can even get into the Bohemian Union very easily and steal the seniority to use Bohemia as a weapon in their wars. The only issue is their events depend on RNG most of the times, so this can be a bit frustrating. But I feel like despite this, Brandenburg is still a very fun nation. Which leaves us with Serbia, our last honorable mention. Serbia has a surprising amount of content for a Balkan nation, and it's also one of the fastest empires to form in the game, by completing the event chain where you conquer half of the Byzantine Empire. They also have very good RGOs, look at how much silver they have. And they also have a very great defensive geography, but sadly this also makes their population and proximity very low. Serbia starts very fast paced and strong, but it falls off pretty quickly until you get better roads. So the best thing Serbia has is actually their first 10 years. So we're back to our top, and at number 3 we have Byzantium/the Ottomans. Even if Byzantium is clearly stronger and now much funny and flavorful because of the DLC, the Ottomans don't fall behind as they have almost 200 events. Greece and Western Anatolia are some of the richest and most populated regions in Europe, where you can also get a lot of naval proximity thanks to Constantinople. This geography also helps to beat anyone on the other side of the strait by just blocking it, or anyone outside of those regions thanks to the mountain attrition. But both Byzantium and the Ottomans aren't only massively strong, they're also very fun to play. The reason why they share this spot is because they're basically the same country. They start pretty much in the same place, they conquer the same regions, and they get very similar events. But their culture and religion are different enough for you to have fun even if you play one after another. So if you only played Byzantium, go and try the Ottomans. Or vice versa, if you only tried the Ottomans, go and try Byzantium as well. At number 2 we have two more strong nations, France and England, and again they have a huge amount of content. Each nation has more than 200 events. The reason why I put them together is because until Tinto decides to rework how governors work, both nations are played very similar. You ideally want to win the 100 Years' War and have your capital in France to be able to benefit from using your 4 local governors there, and then eventually expand into Iberia, Italy, and maybe even into the HRE or outside of Europe by colonizing. The main reason why I recommend England and France is because of how versatile they are. And while this isn't unique to France or England, because there are many other versatile nations like Milan or now Verona who can choose different paths on different games, or others like Aragon can actually do everything they want after ramping up their economy and military capabilities, but England and France are so strong and so rich they can do everything from the beginning, and that's amazing. For example, as France you can start the game, declare on England and then declare on Navarre, Castile and Aragon at the same time and still win every single war. Then after winning these wars you can invade Provence and then jump into Italy. Then after having conquered that much, you'll have to fight a coalition against the HRE and you'll be able to win it. So yes, they are completely overpowered, both England and France. But this is exactly what makes them so fun to play, and that's why they're number 2. And at number 1 we have Achaia and Athens. They share regions with Byzantium and the Ottomans, so everything I said about that applies to Achaia and Athens too. What makes Achaia and Athens different is that they start as underdogs.
They are vassals of Naples or Sicily, ruling over different religion and different cultural land. So when you play as them, you have to fight against your overlords, fight against your neighbors, and fight against your population to stay in power after restoring the Latin Empire. This is already fun enough, but their unique advances, reforms, and events only make this much funnier. The Latin Empire is definitely weaker than many on this list, but much more entertaining to play, and that's why it's number 1. Thank you so much for watching, with special thanks to my channel members, Thomas Semperly and Gunnar1079. I hope to see you again soon. Sorry for the inactivity, but I've had so many technical issues these last weeks. And they're not even fixed yet. I'll get to completely fix them in probably 2 to 3 weeks. But despite the issues, I still owe you so many videos and I'll keep uploading them. See you on the next one. Bye bye.